and we start the episode off in Jakarta all the way back in 2003. If you cast your mind back to last week, then you may remember that they did an announcement over the radio that talked about the city and how something strange was going on there. Here we see it playing out, with the outbreak of the infection being studied by a doctor. This wasn't in the game, and I like how the series is slowly filling in the backstory of the virus. Both the beginning of the last episode and this one had completely new bits in them, and it's possible that we might even get a story slotted in at the opening of each entry that gives us way more details on the infection than what we ever got in the game. Now, when the title card's first shown, we can see this is taking place on September 24, 2003, dating it 2 days before the outbreak. This of course shows how fast the virus spread. We start off with a sunny, seemingly normal day in Indonesia, which is when the military arrive and summon the scientists to a lab. She suspects they think she's committed a crime, but they want her because she's a professor in mycology. Mycology is the study of fungi, and she's the top scientist in the country after having graduated from the University of Indonesia. We once more get it hammered home that there's no cure, and this is why Ellie's such a paramount person in the story. Now, Abu Ratna then examines the specimen, and she's taken to one of the infected. Now, the woman has a bullet hole in her head, and she clearly only stopped once she was shot. Around her foot we see a bite mark, and upon being opened up, this spreads out like the ones from Mrs. Adler's mouth last week. Abu Ratna has a cup of tea, and she learns that things started a flour and grain factory. Anyway, she refers to it as being the perfect substrate, and in biology, this is a term used to describe the surface in which fungus lives. Cheers, Google. He says the woman bit 3 other co-workers and that they were all executed, but that they don't know who bit her, and thus the virus is still out there. 14 other workers are missing as well, and there's not really any way to put a lid on this. Even if they lock down the country, the cordyceps have mutated now, and it's only so long before someone stumbles into them when they're out in the wild. She says that the whole city has to be destroyed, and we see how this strategy was adopted worldwide due to the craters later on. Anyway, there's no hope, and she wants to spend the remaining hours that she has left with her family. It's a really bleak way to intro the episode, and we know that the following 20 years will likely hell on Earth due to how far the virus spread. Now, Ellie very much represents the hope for a cure, and this is shown symbolically with her sleeping under a literal ray of light that shines down on her. Joel and Tess sit in the dark, or as she's anointed, almost like it's a painting of Jesus or something. Now, they're still pretty skeptical over whether she's immune or not, and the entire scene takes place in a beauty salon, which completely juxtaposing the idea of beauty against the devastation that the world's now in. We see Joel's hands trembling, which he diagnoses as a hairline fracture after beating the crap out of the guy last week. When she returns, they end up eating, and Joel and Tess eat some crap bars, I think they're called crap bars, whilst Ellie has a delicious chicken sandwich. This was given to her by Marlene, and it hints to how important she is since they're willing to give her what would be top of the range food in the apocalypse. Ellie says they're trying to get her to an outpost out west, and there's going to be doctors there who can help work on a cure. Tess just wants to finish the job, but she's starting to gain faith in Ellie, and we can see her coming around. If Ellie is indeed able to help with a cure, then that would make her one of the most important people that have ever lived, but it just so happens that she's been slotted up with some, let's say, morally grey characters. Now, in the show, they go the longer scenic route, and Ellie tours the city for the first time, looking at the bombing and what the government tried to do in order to stop the spread.
They hit most of the big cities like this. They had to slow the spread somehow.
Now, here they make their way alongside a highway littered with cars, and I absolutely love the look here. Really recaptures the game, turning this into an urban jungle where nature has taken over once more. Ellie brings up how she got bit, and this happened in a mall inside the QZ. This all took place in the Left Behind DLC. Anyway, after hearing the cry of the infected, they decide to head into the hotel. In the show, this happens much earlier than it does in the game, with it not appearing until the Pittsburgh chapter. Now, Ellie also mentions that she can't swim, and it brought back PTSD flashbacks of all those wooden pallets floating in the water. Whew, never again. Now, they end up ascending, which is when Tess climbs through a gap in order to unlock a door for them. In the game, you grabbed a ladder and navigated your way up the building, which is where you encountered some bandits. Either way, here they use the time for some character development, with Joel and Ellie being forced into an awkward conversation. Joel is clearly a closed book at this point, and he lies about where he's from and won't even answer whether he and Tess are an item. It's important to bear in mind that at this point in the story, Joel's pretty much just a shell of his former self, and due to the death of Sarah, he refuses to get attached to anything. He knows the pain that comes from loss, and his sole focus is on just making it through the day-to-day. Because of his past, he also knows that surviving means you have to do awful things, and thus he doesn't really like to make alliances in case it comes to a point where it's him or them standing in the way of tomorrow. Now out on the hotel balcony, the group look out and they see piles of infected. They're way more overpowered than what they are in the game, and we learn that they have an almost hive-like mind due to the fungus connecting them. The fungi work like a connected brain, and from the vast strains that live underground, they're almost like telephone wires joining up the locations. Now realizing they have no other way around, they go to the museum, which is ripped right out of the game. The building initially seems safe because the roots outside have rotted away, but the open door signals that something else is going on. They catch a staff member grown into the ground. There's also a recently killed soldier that has been ripped apart. Tess is optimistic that they were attacked outside and crawled in here to die, but all it does is signal that something else is in the building. As they get through the door, the beams collapse, and even the shape of how it falls looks like how it is in the game. We see the mannequins in the display cases, and these add extra human shapes to the surroundings, really elevating the paranoia and fear in this scene. One appears behind a glass case, and I kinda got flashes of the T-Rex scene in Jurassic Park when they're in the Jeep and the dinosaurs on the other side. The clickers suss them out and it leads to a big fight with two whilst Ellie crawls her way out and Joel uses sound to distract them. Joel manages to reunite with Ellie, but the clicker senses them after they step on broken glass. You had to be really careful when navigating around them, as there would often be piles on the floor that could alert them at any second. Anyway, they managed to take them down, but we later learn that Tess got bit during this. We're not sure exactly when this happens, but in the game, you find her pushed up against a cabinet and have to save her, which is when I've always thought that it happens there. Now as they step outside and she sits down, we can also catch a blood stain on her coat. This is probably where she got bit, and my guess is that the clicker pulled back and then dribbled the blood from his bite onto her. Tess clearly knows she's on borrowed time too, and she wants them to see the positive news in her surviving the bite rather than Joel's doom and gloom. Now after arriving at the state building, they see a truck full of dead Firefly soldiers, and also I think it's worth pointing out that Joel has an assault rifle for this whole episode, whereas in the game, I always saw him as being more of a pistol and shotgun man, but moving on. Anyway, they make their way into the building with Joel still suspecting Ellie might not be the real deal. Inside they discover the dead, and we learn that one got bit, which led to everyone turning on each other. Tess is in this situation too, and after revealing her bite, they let her handle things on her own terms. Joel is actually a little bit apprehensive over this, and you can see as she comes towards him that he starts to step back. The scenes play out really similarly to the game, with us getting a few lines of dialogue that mirror each other here.
Our luck had to run out sooner or later.
Our luck had to run out sooner or later.
She's infected.
She's infected.
I was bitten an hour ago and it's already worse. This is fucking real, Joel.
This is real. Joel, she's fucking real.
Here the infected are alerted, with them scrambling from the area before to swarm the state building. Tess tips over some explosive barrels and also some grenades so that she can take them all out. It's such a tense scene watching them close in as she struggles to spark up her lighter due to it not triggering and her hands trembling because of the infection. Tess is then given the kiss of death and she drops the lighter, taking them all out. Here though, I actually like the impact and the time that they give to Tess's death. You didn't really get a moment to breathe originally, but I just love the devastation that kinda washes over this scene. Joel as always continues moving, but Ellie stays still, hit with a realization of just how quickly things can change in this world. It really is one of life and death, and it speaks to both their characters. In the game, Ellie would even press Joel to talk about Tess, and he'd refuse to because dwelling on it would make him face up to what happened. It's a devastating way to end the episode, with them now on the other side of the building, and that golden dome hanging over them in the background. Now obviously, I would love to hear your thoughts on the show, so make sure you comment below and let me know. If you want something else to watch, we've got a video linked on screen right now, and if you're watching this right after the show, then I appreciate you staying up late with me, and I hope to see you on the next one. You have a great week, more Last of Us stuff coming, and also take care of yourself. I'll see you next time. Peace.